Many people dream of buying a little farm and retiring to the mountains of Puerto Rico. Well, today we're going to talk to someone who's actually done that. But before we do, I'm talking to people across North America about their home buying experience. It's part of a research project, so if you want to participate in that, click the link below to schedule a time to chat. Today I have Cassie Kauffman, who basically retired early, bought a flower farm, and is now living the dream in the mountains just outside of Rincon. Welcome, Cassie.
Thank you, Diane, for having me.
Well, it's awesome to have you here. And one of the realities of living in Puerto Rico is that you can't always get fast internet in every part of the island. So today we don't have Cassie's beautiful face, but we do have her voice. Cassie, how did you end up living on a farm, a flower farm in Puerto Rico?
Well, the flower farm was kind of accidental. We didn't expect that we would be focusing on flowers specifically, which has actually been great. We thought we were going to be doing more on fruit and other plants like that, which we do, we do plant and grow. But the flower was kind of accidental, and we love it. But as far as the farm, we knew that we wanted to get some properties that had a little bit of land where we could plant things. We come from Colorado, so every spring or summer we were, raring to go to plant things in our garden. We had just a tiny little, normal suburban house with a, tenth of an acre, but we loved gardening outside, and so much so that we started bringing plants inside of our house, house plants like coffee plants and banana trees and all sorts of things, to the point where people, when they would come and visit our house, they'd say, "I think you're living in the wrong place." And we'd say, "I think you're right." So we knew we wanted to get something that had some land so we could plant. So that has been a really fun part of living here, is growing lots of different exotic plants. And the flowers turned out to be, like I said, accidental. We thought they would just be ornamental part of our farm here, but there's been a lot of demand for flowers for Airbnbs, for hotels, for businesses, for just people who like them in their house for the beauty that they bring. So we kind of focus on specialty cut flowers right now.
Okay, that's fascinating, and we'll get more into that. But I want to take a step back and go back to Colorado. So you're in your normal house, you're growing things everywhere. People have suggested maybe you should move to the tropics. Tell me a little bit about your thought process there. Like, what were you doing for a living, and how did you come to decide on Puerto Rico, and how did you make that move?
Well, that's a long story, I guess. Basically, I studied international trade and relations in college, and I was really fascinated with Latin America, especially. And so we would take trips to Mexico, and I studied different parts of Latin America, and I was really drawn and interested in Puerto Rico. I was amazed that there's this basically Latin country that's part of the United States that's easy to travel to. And it's tropical, which I love, obviously, from the plants and things, tropical weather. So it's kind of like it just all clicked into place. I said, on our honeymoon, I said, let's go there. Let's see if it fits. And it was just amazing. We spent 2 weeks driving around the island, exploring. We even slept in our car a couple of nights just so we could be, really in the area, and so we loved it, and we said, now this is our goal. And from then we just worked and saved, and I worked in public health as a health promoter, and my husband worked in data administration and computers. And so we made it kind of a single goal of ours that we were going to, do this. We were going to move, basically kind of retire. We work really hard on this farm, but not have to necessarily look for a job when we got here. That was kind of the main thing, because that, from what in our research we learned, was one of the most difficult parts of moving to Puerto Rico was finding a job, in the types of sectors that we worked in. So that was our goal and our dream, and we worked every day to make it happen.
So you guys worked really hard, you saved a bunch of money. So then I guess you were looking at property in Puerto Rico. Tell me about that process. Like, how did you find your property? What did you go through to make the transaction happen?
Yeah, that was another long part of the journey that we went through. It's kind of fun because we, rather than just a normal vacation where you go and sit on the beach, which is great, but our vacations were scouting out properties. So for about, let's see, 5 years, we would come every year to Puerto Rico, and part of the trip was to we get a whole list of properties that real estate agents or clasificados online, which is the kind of main source of property in Puerto Rico, or lots of for sale by owner. In Puerto Rico, the majority aren't listed, so you have to actually call everyone and set up an appointment, oftentimes with the owner. And so we did that every trip, and we found a really nice place up in Lares, and we put an offer in. We put money down on it, and we basically reserved it. The problem was that it was a 25-acre farm in the mountains of Lares, and it was beautiful. It was on a river. It had a couple little houses, so we thought we could do some ecotourism or something like that up there. But the problem was it didn't have a title, or it wasn't titled correctly, which is common here oftentimes, because there are so many cash deals that in properties that are passed down from the family. It's in family names, and it's just a different real estate. It's a different ballgame here. So we waited and waited for about 3 years, and finally the deal just wasn't happening. We have to do something, this isn't moving. And so we got out of that deal, and everything was fine. It was amicable. But then it kind of set us back, like, oh, we got to start all over. So we started searching again in Isabela and San Sebastian. But what we were really attracted to was Rincon. It kind of has a strong economy, probably the strongest economy of Puerto Rico besides San Juan, in terms of tourism and in terms of kind of the things that we wanted to do. But we thought we were priced out of it for wanting land, especially because land goes a little bit more here for the budget that we had, which, being young people, we didn't have the big budget. But then we, on one of the trips, Britain went and saw this property that we have now, give away the ending, but it was listed way too expensive. So he kind of just forgot about it, and we ended up actually putting in another offer for another property. And in the midst of this other property that we liked, it was 12 acres in Isabela border. We got basically an email from the realtor that said, you saw the house in Rincon, the property. If you like it, put in an offer. Essentially, like, these people have had this property for a long time. If you make an offer that's anywhere reasonable, you will get it. Without so many words. And so we had to really talk about it and think about it, because it was a fixer-upper. It was a house that either needed to be torn down or remodeled. And we didn't really scout the land very well, so we didn't know what, because it was so outside of the realm that we thought we could actually do. We didn't really take it seriously, so we didn't, but we knew it was in the right area. We knew it was had potential. So, so we talked with the realtor and basically came up with a deal that was essentially like a third of the price that was listed at.
Wow.
And so we said we can't, even though we lost our money from the other deal, like about $1,000, it was worth it for the price that we got for this place. So anyway, it was kind of a fun, exciting part of the journey here.
Wow.
And then it, then once you get here, then it's a whole new, very exciting story.
So let me ask you this: did it take you, was it 5 or 8 years to actually find this property?
To find the property, we closed on it in 2011. So it took us about 5 years to find it, because then we had about 6 months or so of doing paperwork and going back and forth, since we were still in Colorado and things like that. And then we spent 2 more years in Colorado going back and forth to the property, visiting it after we had bought it, saving and things like that.
So how long would you say it took you from, I guess it was your honeymoon where you guys decided this is where you wanted to be, to actually moving to the island?
Yes, 2005, and then we moved full-time in 2013. We bought the property in 2011. Okay.
Okay. All right. So when you were searching for the property, you're fluent in Spanish, correct?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So were you pretty much just representing yourself, calling owners, dealing with whoever answered the phone?
Yep, yep, pretty much. If the property had a agent, then we could talk with them, and they would be between the buyers. But a lot of the times it was just directly. Hmm.
And then when it came
And some people
to,
are bilingual, so it makes it a little bit easier. It kind of depended on the property.
and when it came to doing the actual transaction, did you hire your own lawyer or did you just rely on the agent that was representing the seller to shuttle it
We
through?
hired a separate lawyer, yeah, our own lawyer. So basically, like here, since you don't have an agent necessarily representing you pretty much ever,
Yeah.
you kind of have to do all of that yourself. So we just hired a lawyer that somebody recommended to us to do the paperwork, and then to put to get the title into CRIM, which is the government agency that keeps track of property.
Awesome. And it sounds like you paid cash?
Yeah, basically, we took out we did it kind of creative financing, I guess you'd say.
Gotcha. Okay. So you got some cash from somewhere on the mainland and brought it over and just gave it to him, right?
Yeah.
You got the property, you had it for a couple of years, and then you decided to make the move to the island. Tell me about that. Like, what did the property already have? What did it need? And at what point did you move? And did you live on the property or did you have to live off the property for a while? How was that transition?
Yeah, so when we saw this property listed, it was only listed as land, which was okay with us. We thought, we can build on land. But when we actually got to, look at it, it had two structures on it. It had a wooden structure, wooden house. It was about 700 or 800 square foot. And then it had a little casita, they call a casita de existencia, which is a studio. So just a one single room, like a hotel room with a bathroom and a kitchenette. And so when we looked at the wooden house on the property, it was pretty clear that we couldn't live in it. It had everything, it had water and electricity, but it was infested with bees. It was
Ooh.
infested with bats. It had rats living in all the appliances. It had been abandoned for 10 years. The woman who had lived in it, died in it. And the family just never did anything with it after that. And then basically around the area, people kind of were like, oh, that's the spooky haunted house kind of thing, which we didn't know any of this when we went into it, which is also kind of the fun part of buying property.
Yeah.
So we went in there like, oh, there's bees. I know nothing about bees. And there's bats in the walls. And there's rats. And there's cockroaches. And the roof is, rusting away. And it's, so it was like, well, if we're going to remodel this, it's going to take a lot of effort. So we thought on it for a while. We stayed in the little studio cabana. It was just, at that time, it was just me and my husband. We hadn't had our baby yet. So, it was okay. It was a tight fit, but we could do it. And then we had to make the choice at some point. So we decided that we looked at a lot of the wood, and it was all treated wood. There weren't any problems with termites in any of the wood that was treated, which was a surprise to us because everyone had told us, don't get a wooden house in Puerto Rico, don't get a wooden house in the tropics. But the truth is that if it's well treated wood is fine. It's more dangerous in a hurricane, and there's some other issues. But as far as wood lasting here, if it's well treated, it's fine. So the house was full of this like beautiful, pristine wood, lumber that had like very little knots, and so we were like, how we can just throw this away, tear it down and throw it away. And so we talked to some. It's kind of like a long story, but basically we came to the decision that we would take it down and we reprocess the wood and move most of it to the other side of the property, which was unused, kind of wild jungle, and repurpose it into what we are now living in now, which is a little cabin in the woods.
So you have this property, you decided what to do with the two structures. What about the land itself? Like, I know it takes a while sometimes to get to know a piece of land and decide what to do with it. What was already there and where did you want to take it?
Yeah, so that was part of the reason that we had decided to reutilize the land or the wood was so that we could use the land better. So that we would use the other side of the property that we didn't know very much at all about. So we had, like there was kind of like a corridor on the property where it was really walkable and easy. If you have walked properties in Puerto Rico, you know that it's oftentimes hilly and mountainous. It was steep inclines. So we were very lucky considering we didn't know much about the property or the feel of the land when we bought it. It's a beautiful piece of property. We love it. It's the end of the road, so there's no other houses around. So it's super quiet, and it's in a neighborhood, but it ends at ours, and basically a cul-de-sac at the end. And then beyond us is like about 200 acres of undeveloped forest. And so it's very, very quiet. So we could kind of explore, and we would get lost. We would take the machete out and walk around, and just we walked an acre, a football field, basically, if you think of an acre as a football field, and it would take us 2 or 3 hours because we would just be in this dense jungle, hacking away at weeds and vines and thorns and listening to birds and animals that we'd never, bugs, and getting scratched and breaking out in random things because we didn't know, and our fragile skin that had never been exposed to the elements here until now we're a lot tougher. But so we would just explore. Really, we'd cut paths through the jungle basically, and until we got a good feel for it. And then once we kind of figured out, there was a quebrada, which is like a dry creek, so it flows water when it rains heavy. And so that was kind of neat. So we built a bridge over the quebrada so that we could access the other side while we were building the structure here, this cabin. So that was kind of fun. It's a neat little feature of our property now. We built staircases by hand with concrete, poured them with a small mixer using a generator. So we became pretty handy. We went from suburban wage workers to jungle country people, and it was a pretty
What's the word for that?
Big transition.
They have a word for the country people. I forgot what it is.
Yeah, it's hibaro.
Okay. And is that a bad word or is it a neutral word?
Mostly now it's considered a nostalgic, nice word.
Okay.
some people use it like, they're jibaros, they're country people that don't, wear shoes or whatever, have the mancha de plátano, which is like the stain of the plantain on them. If you've ever cut a banana, which we do like every day, it leaks out a sap that can stain your clothes. So here in Puerto Rico, if you say you have la mancha de plátano, that means that you're like from the country. You're here, like it's not going away. Just like the stain on your clothes will never go away. And
oh my gosh, sounds like a line of merch that would do really well.
Right? Yeah.
So the land, in terms of what you could grow, because obviously you guys were into plants and wanted to grow on the land. The flowers, were they already there, or did you happen to see a demand, and then did you plant fruits? I mean, tell me about the land and the production of food and products itself so that you can sustain yourselves. How did that go?
Basically, our philosophy, and it's become even more so now, is that if we see a plant we've never seen, we buy it and we plant it. Because the supply here is kind of random. It comes from basically personal farms. You'll always find like the Trinitaria and hibiscus and certain plants will always be in the nurseries here, but other ones that are kind of the rare exotic fruits that we really like, or the rare exotic flowers, they come from people's farms. So they have to either bring it to the nurseries and then you luck out that they happen to be there, or you have to go to the farm themselves, which we've done many, many times, is gone to other people's farms and dig them out with a digging stick, like we call it, with a big bar or a big shovel, and put them in the back of your pickup. Like it's not always packaged neatly with a bow and easy to do. So it takes a lot of effort. The flowers, the way we started with that, like I said, we pretty much just have never said no to a plant. If a plant comes in our life, we say, we're going to plant it, we're going to water it, we're going to help you grow. And so with the flowers, one day one of our friends said there's an abandoned property that's across from the street from her, and it's just getting taken over by vines, and all of these gorgeous flowers are going to just die. So you should come over and get them. So we brought our dig and stick, and we dug them out, like almost all of them.
Wow.
And and it was good, because otherwise that property would have just been taken over and trees would have fallen on it. It turned out that near that time was Maria, so they would have been completely destroyed. So it was nice that we could use them and save them. And there were these huge heliconias. So which I don't know if you know, a lot of people call them bird of paradise. They're not truly bird of paradise, but they look like them.
Yeah.
So those are called heliconias. Some people call them lobster claws. So that's like the main kind of flower that we focus on. And we had a particular variety of that from that house that now we have planted, because once you have a rhizome, then you can split it and you can plant it in more places. And that particular one is blooming right now. It's amazing. It's called a Wagneriana heliconia. And we have probably 400 flowers blooming right now. It's just incredible. And they last. They look like wax. And they kind of last like wax. Like they're just like plastic. People think those are fake. They look fake. But they can last 2 weeks in a vase when they're cut. So they're gorgeous flowers. So that was kind of the first one that we had. And one year after we had planted these and they started growing, we had so many of these flowers, and we said, this is beautiful to walk through, on our property, but we should do something with it. So we said, well, they have a farmer's market down in the plaza of Rincon, so let's bring them down there. And so we packed up a big bucket full of these flowers, like about 100 of them, and they sold. Like they all sold out to various people, tourists, people that lived here. They were amazing. I mean, they're gorgeous flowers. And so we said, well, maybe we should focus on the flowers rather than so much on the fruit. Since people don't tend to want, for whatever reason, people don't tend to want to spend money on their food. I think because the prices in the grocery stores are so much lower than it takes to grow them yourself. But they are willing to do it for flowers because I guess people think of it more as a luxury item. And so we were like, well, maybe we should focus more on the flowers. So then we started researching more and learning more about all these different varieties of heliconias, and they're amazing. There's pendants that go upright. They're multiple colors from pink to bright orange, looks like sunsets, and some of them hang down like the pendant, so they look like they're it's just amazing. And then there's also the gingers, which are like more soft and fluffy, and then there's ones that look like beehives. They look like they call them micrófonos. They almost look like the old-fashioned microphones. So it's been really, really fun learning all of these different types of plants and things that you can grow here. And it's surprising to me that it's not more grown here, which is, I think, also why we found such a good market for it, was that there's these amazing plants that grow here that nobody's really growing. Wow. So hopefully with more people knowing about these beautiful plants, that more and more people will grow it and there'll be more and more demand. So that's kind of our goal with that.
So when you moved to Puerto Rico, did you have enough savings that you didn't really have to worry about how to make a living and the flowers were kind of a happy circumstance, or were you looking for a way to kind of use the farm to sustain your lifestyle?
We brought enough that we could live if we had to, but it would be a sparse kind of lifestyle, which we practiced. In Colorado, we practiced living frugally. We practiced, we even did coupons, and, we lived like we didn't have money so that we could save about 80% of our income while we were working.
Wow.
Which is a lot.
That's huge.
So we basically lived like we were in poverty so that we could have that excess to live here without fear of having to move back. And then the goal was that once we got here, with that, we have some investments from Colorado, like the house that we lived in, we kept, and then it's a rental. So we have some income there, but the goal was to not have to get into our savings too much, but at some point we would be self-sustaining here. That the income that we could make off the little studio and off the flower farm would be enough that we wouldn't have to, that it would, like, we could sustain our life from the money from here. So that's, and we're pretty much there. So it's pretty cool.
That's awesome. So from 2011 to now, you've pretty much achieved that goal. What's your cost of living like?
Well, it does help to not have the biggest expense that most people do, which is housing. To have paid off the property.
Yeah.
Because that's generally the biggest expense. And then the second biggest expense is usually cars, and we drive old beaters, so those are also paid off. And so our main costs are food. We have daycare for our baby, which isn't very much here, $300 a month, which is like usually from the States considered to be crazy inexpensive. And there's like our healthcare. When I was pregnant, we had to think more about that. That was kind of an unexpected cost. Property taxes are virtually non-existent here. We have probably more sales tax than other places. So if you buy clothes or food, almost 11% tax. So the taxes are kind of all over the place. But yeah, it's not very much. If you can take out those big items from your budget line, you can live for $1,000, $2,000 a month or something. Depends on the person. Like I said, our lifestyle, we were willing to be frugal. We were willing to live without some of the, we don't get our hair done. We don't have some of the luxuries. We go out to dinner, but we share a meal. Things like that. So.
Well, it sounds great, honestly. It's simple, it's everything you need, and you've got this beautiful land, and now you've got this casita, which I'll definitely link to down below. I've seen the pictures. It looks really cute. Is there air conditioning in it?
No, there's no air conditioning, but it's under a mango tree, so it stays cool. That makes the big difference. And that's true, I would say, for anyone who is looking to reduce their costs of heating or cooling, is think about your trees around you. They will lower your amount of heat that you have by about 10 degrees. They say, like in San Juan, that it's about 10 degrees warmer in San Juan just because of all the concrete and asphalt than it is, anywhere in the country because of the plants.
When you moved to the island, you had maybe some unexpected costs with the pregnancy and maybe the taxes, but were there any other unexpected costs, or were there unexpected cultural surprises that you had to adapt to?
The cost, not so much, probably just, the pregnancy, which is like not totally unexpected. Kind of wanted to have a baby, so that wasn't completely out of the realm of possibility. And then probably the biggest cost was when during construction and tearing down and rebuilding the house, but we also planned for that. So not a whole lot of like surprise expenses. As far as culturally, it's hard to change your cultural identity, essentially, to go from something that fairly comfortable. Everywhere you go, you can speak English fluidly and know that someone is understanding you, to going and saying, be self-doubting yourself. Like, even though I can speak Spanish, wondering, did I say that correctly? Did I have the right inflection? Is there a double entendre? Because here I learned Spanish in Mexico, so Puerto Rican Spanish is much different, and sometimes they're hilariously different. The words you might use may have some kind of sexual connotation.
Right. Oops. Like soy caliente.
Yeah, exactly.
I had done that one before.
Oh my God. Yeah. So so you have to be careful. So you get kind of in these like funny situations. Like even something as simple as the first time I asked for, somebody said, "Do you want jugo de China?" So jugo is juice. De is from or of, and China, the way I learned it, is China. So do you want juice from China? Okay. And I said, I don't care where it comes from. And but what it actually is China in Puerto Rican Spanish is orange.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
So they were saying, do you want orange juice? That was like very, very. So from my mind, I was like, sure, it could be from Japan. Get it from China.
Funny.
So just funny things like that. I think probably the harder thing is like that we came here with no family, no friends. So you have to make a whole new social network of people that you can trust when you're, in the hospital or in some kind of, and these people don't know if you're going to stick around, if you're going to move, if like when you invest in people, you spend a lot of your time and effort getting to know them, and so you kind of want them to stick around as much as life is not predictable or guaranteed at all to anyone, but it's kind of, so that's kind of hard, is that here family is very, very strong and important. So until you're kind of part of the family, which you can be, you eventually become part of the family, but it's a little bit harder, you're not family until you've really kind of proven yourself as family.
Well, how did you
So
do that? How did you build a social network from essentially scratch, especially living out in the country?
It just takes time. You find people that you have, interests in. Oftentimes it's proximity. You meet your neighbors, you go up, and like after the hurricane, you really became friends with everybody.
Yeah.
Because that was a kind of a bonding moment. If we all went through the hurricane, so we're all in this together. We're all humans. We got to help each other. We had friends and family, or not. Well, we had family send us stuff through the mail, but the neighbors who would bring food, just basic canned foods after the hurricane. So water, tell us where even the natural springs, like we had to actually go and fill up trash cans full of water after the hurricane, and then bring them with the truck, and then dump them into our tank, or like our 400-gallon reserve tank, so that we could wash clothes and take hose baths and stuff. So they would tell us where the closer spring is, natural spring, where we could get it. Or, oh, did you know that FEMA delivered some more water? And so a lot of times when you make friends, it's kind of for a mutual benefit to everyone, or you have some sort of mutual interest. That was also kind of hard for us because we work on our farm, so we don't necessarily have to collaborate in the way that a lot of people would in a standard kind of job, where you go to work and you meet somebody and then you go have drinks with them after work or something. So yeah, building a social network has probably been a challenge, but there's ways. Just be friendly, be willing to say yes more than no, and get to know people and open up. And
yeah, I think that's key, actually, that being willing to say yes more than no. I mean, I see it in your answer with the plants, saying yes to all those plants to see what worked. And then you discovered those flowers, and then saying yes to people who want to reach out or do something. And then, pretty soon you have friends. Our experience was that our neighbors in Puerto Rico were fantastic. I mean, the people were just, really warm and friendly, and love their country and want to share it with you. And so it's heartening to hear that you're having that kind of experience as well.
Yeah, that has been so important. I think that if we felt pushed out or disliked or something, it would be a lot harder. So having friendly, open, loving neighbors and friends has definitely made a huge difference. We also started a band while we were here, so that was another way that we
that's cool.
Friends.
I love it. I didn't know that.
Yeah, that was a random little aside. It was fun for about 2 years. Before the baby,
Right.
we would go play the bar scene in Rincon and get dressed up, and we had theme nights, and Bryn played the bass guitar, and I sang and played some keyboards, and we had a drummer and another couple of guitar players. We had a saxophone player sometimes step in, a trombone player. So yeah, it was a lot of fun.
I love it. When Aiden's a little older, you got to put him on the tambourine or something.
Yeah, totally. He's got the beat. We have a conga in here in the room, and he's always kind of hitting the guitar. So I think he's got music in him too.
That's awesome. People who are thinking about retiring to Puerto Rico, they're always curious about the medical system, and you obviously accessed it during your pregnancy. Have you had to access it for any other reason, and what's your feeling about it?
It saved our lives, both Britain and my life. So I can't speak too bad about it, because without it, we wouldn't be here. I had some issues after my pregnancy where I had a retained placenta. And so that caused me some hemorrhaging, and I could say a lot of things that the doctors could have done better to prevent that. there was some definitely better care that could have taken place. But in the end, I'm still here. So, if we look at it as outcome based, I'm alive. And then Britton also had a pulmonary embolism, and they helped him a lot through that too, and getting him on some blood thinners and things like that. So the hospital care isn't fancy. Maybe there's some in different places. I've heard that they're going to open a humongous fancy hospital in Dorado, but I imagine the cost is a lot more too.
Yeah.
So the doctors are, they're trained. They know what they're doing. They're understaffed. They're underfunded. When I was in the hospital, the roof was leaking in my room on my bed.
Wow.
Things like that. You have to bring your own blankets and pillowcases or pillows even. They didn't have pillows. So they didn't have soap. You have to bring your own stuff, which is common. It's like that's standard. That's not like unusual. So yeah, it's different. You have to kind of be prepared that when you're getting health care, you're getting treated because you need treated. Some places are probably nicer. It's, like I said, but the ones that we've accessed were like basic care. Like you will survive if you go here. But
is this in Mayaguez or?
Yeah, Mayaguez was the main one. We also went to the just like the emergency kind of clinic in Rincon. So,
Yeah.
but it's okay. You'll make it through. They're fine. Everyone's friendly and professional.
And it's a lot cheaper.
Definitely could use some help with some funding, infrastructure and repairs and things like that.
So it's there if you need it, but if you're a little hardier, that's probably helpful.
Right, definitely come here being a little bit more rugged and hardy.
And then
if you need extra care, then plan on, like, if somebody is older and knows that they're going to be seeing doctors regularly, maybe plan on having it in their budget to travel to the States occasionally for specific care. It's really inexpensive. That's also the benefit of it.
Well, yeah, I mean, in our experience, it was half price. I don't know what your experience was, but
yeah, I mean,
less.
basically, you could have a baby here for $3,000 or $4,000 versus $50,000 or something.
Wow,
so
that's how much it costs in the States now. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So one of the things about living in Puerto Rico is that there's more bureaucracy, and everyday things when dealing with the government seem to take longer. Have you had any bureaucratic hassles? And if so, how do you get through it?
Everything does take a little bit longer. We are blessed that we can take a whole day and go to the DMV if we need to. So some people who don't have that are not, if you're on New York time, I'm going to get this thing done and I'm going to get a million other things done in one day, you're going to have a hard time in Puerto Rico. If you are like, well, today I'm going to spend the day getting my driver's license, or today I'm going to spend my day getting this new form filled out or whatever, then you'll be fine. It'll eventually happen. It just takes a little bit longer. There's lines, and it's actually been with the pandemic, they've put a lot more online, which has made it so that you can get your appointment online, and then that cuts off a lot of the waiting in person. So that's actually been nice lately.
Yeah. Well, then I guess if you're retired and you have a day to go to the doctor or do whatever, then maybe it's okay.
Right.
It's a
yeah. So
mindset
recently,
thing.
Britton went and got his driver's license just the other day, and it only took about an hour. So we were like, wow, that wasn't too bad. So then we spent the rest of the day at the beach and wandering around, and so plan, basically set your expectations appropriately. Don't expect to do the things the way you do it where you're from, and then you'll be much happier.
Gotcha. So I see on your channel that you've been exploring the island quite a bit lately. What are your favorite places, your favorite little day trips to go?
Well, we're on the West Coast, so I'm a lot more familiar with the West Coast, although we are trying to explore a little bit more, inland and on the East Coast. I would say our three top things that we do are abandoned places or ruins, waterfalls and like water holes, and beaches. Those are probably the three kind of broad categories you could say. We're pretty much interested in anything. but that's kind of where we like to go mostly.
Three
And for
things
waterfalls,
that Puerto Rico has plenty of.
right? Yeah, exactly. And they're almost always accessible. You know, you don't have to worry about openings or times or anything like that. It's for me, it's great. I love it. It's like my favorite part of living here. So for waterfalls, my favorite town is San Sebastian. I could tell you all sorts of waterfalls and water holes there.
Really?
It's like a wonder. Probably the most famous is Gozalandia. It's gotten very, very touristy, but it is a beautiful spot for waterfalls. But there's some others that are just like hidden gems that you kind of have to be a little bit more in shape for. There's not trails and paths. Like exploring in Puerto Rico isn't like there's a trailhead and now you're going to walk and you're going to find this thing. It's like I'm going to have to get lost in the jungle for a little bit and then I might come back on it. And I like it like that. It's fun. It makes it more of an adventure. And then as far as beaches, I'm fond of Rincon because it has basically all of the types of beaches that you might like. It has the best elkhorn snorkeling in the Caribbean, as far as I know, at Steps Beach, Tres Palmas Reserve. It also has good surfing. It has good paddleboarding, depending on the waves. It has good bathing beaches. It has good hiking beaches. And then I'd also say if you like hiking to a beach rather than just pulling up and parking, that Survival Beach in Aguadilla is a really fun one. And there's like these hidden stairs up there that you can hike to.
Ooh, that sounds fun. Survival Beach. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna note that one.
And Cabo Rojo is known for its white sand beaches. So that's a favorite for very, photogenic down there in Cabo Rojo. And the lighthouses, of course, are pretty stunning. So, yeah, I mean, it would be really hard for me to just pin down one or two places because every time I find a new place, I'm like, oh, this is my new favorite spot.
Well, that's the thing about Puerto Rico. It's an island, but it's big enough that there's so many beaches and so many hidden gems in the mountains to go and visit. You could spend a lifetime exploring it probably. So what would be your top 2 or 3 bits of advice to people thinking about retiring in Puerto Rico? What would you tell them ahead of time?
Well, I mean, it depends on a few factors. They have to, you kind of do some soul searching for your own self. If efficiency and getting things done and driving according to all the correct rules and all the regulations really matters to you, you're kind of a type A personality, things should be done quickly and efficiently, you might struggle here because things aren't like that. It's a lot more laid back. It's a lot more loose. A lot of times there's, like for instance, if you're driving, you have the right of way, somebody might just stop in front of you and let somebody else in because that other person's been waiting for 5 minutes across the street. And you'd say, well, I had the right of way, but it's kind of it's a courtesy. So those are the kinds of things that you have to learn. And so you have to really kind of think, well, can you handle that before you commit to it? So I'd say, like, for a person, it'd be good to come here, especially if you know that you're that type of person, because maybe you'll be fine, especially if you're maybe in a neighborhood that's a little bit more controlled or something like that. But overall, I'd say you have to have some self-awareness of what you're willing to or want to do with your life. So if it's exciting to you, sometimes you have a honeymoon period where people are like, I can do anything, but then when the reality comes and you have to deal with a water bill that you can't resolve, or then or a hurricane, like, can you handle these bigger events in stride? Can you take it as an adventure, or is it going to drive you nuts? So that's something that somebody, a person has to think about for themselves. That's a personality thing. So I can't know that about a person, but as far as nuts and bolts go, always expect that it costs double than you hope. There's the hopeful number, and then there's the true number. Expect that things will take twice as long. If you set yourself up for appropriate expectations, you're generally a little bit happier, and you're not disappointed then.
Definitely. I always tell people to go and try it for a while before they ship everything they own.
Yeah.
Just
even
to
like
see
what
how
we
it
did,
resonates.
just take vacations, even just go and drive around the island, feel what feels good to you or doesn't. Know yourself in a new place. And it's different than knowing yourself in the place that you're comfortable with. So yeah, rent for a while.
That's a great idea, because I know a lot of people who watch my channel and comment, they actually do go down there pretty regularly, like every vacation they can, to, to see if they really want to live there. And it's a great way to get to know the island. And yeah, like you said, rent for a while, that's always good too. But sometimes you just know.
And the dream is always different than the reality, so remember that you have, like, people from the outside, if you watch our videos, it's dreamlike, it's wonderful, it's beautiful, and it is, like, all of that's true. But we also have to live, we also have to go get groceries, we have to go to the bank, you have to live your life in the moments between the amazing time. So
you know what I don't understand about your videos is how y'all can walk around barefoot in the grass and not get bit by the fire ants. Because every time I try to walk barefoot, I would get bit by fire ants.
Well, you are like my husband. He gets bit all the time. I get bit by the mosquitoes. The mosquitoes love me, but the ants kind of leave me alone. I don't know if there's something in my pheromones or something, but I am chewed up by the mosquitoes, and the ants leave me alone. So.
Oh man, I got those too. I got them both. Although I did notice that the longer I was on the island, the less intense the mosquito bites were. Like I didn't get as many, but I would still get.
I wonder if it's our tolerance, like, or maybe just our skin gets tougher. Or something.
I don't know. Somebody said it's the level of oxygen in your blood or whatever. I don't know. The longer you're there, the more you adapt. I don't know. I just remember my favorite perfume was Eau de Off.
Well, we do keep a bottle of Off next to our bedstand. That's a different thing that we never had in Colorado.
Yeah, but you're right. You just have to adapt. Well, Cassie, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me and just sharing your adventure on the island. And I'm going to go ahead and put a link to your channel down below in the description. And then I'll link to your Airbnb as well so that people can come and stay with you.
Great. Thank you so much, Diane. It was fun talking with you.
All right. Well, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.